Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. And thanks for coming by. Let me start with some macro thoughts. The S&P 500 in an endless Groundhog Day has hit another record high as of yesterday. Take a look at this chart from Bloomberg. It's really extraordinary, and it's floated higher on a rising tide of easy money. And for all the talking, really the central banks have done very little to remove the stimulus that's swishing around the markets. Of course, it's been a bad month so far for the US dollar, with every major currency globally strengthening against it, except the South Korean won. And we know why. And in May, I spoke of a possibility of an apocalypse Trump, and I said if we're headed to an apocalypse Trump, then I'm afraid the dollar has a lot further to fall, and the yen and gold have a lot further to go. However, and I also said we're living in an unprecedented moment, but the thing is, things don't go down in a straight line. They've gone down tremendously, and they tend to bounce. And we're seeing a small rebound in the dollar index right now. This is a chart from Triple Leverage. Dollar index chart 91.83 needs to regain 93.50 to change the game. It's not clear to me we'll get back to those sorts of levels. The Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index is poised to snap a 7-session losing streak, coming off its lowest level since the start of 2015. Home thoughts, please take a look at this video of our late evening encounter with elephants at Mzima Springs and the Tsavo. Mzima Springs is a series of natural springs in Tsavo National Park, located in the west of the park, around 48 kilometers from Mtito. The source of the springs is a natural reservoir under the Chulu Hills, where we visited as well, and that was this extraordinary, elevated, fantastic place. And we'll show you some of that as well. Chulu Range is composed of volcanic lava, rock and ash, which is too porous to allow rivers to flow. Instead, rainwater percolates through the rock and may spend 25 years underground before emerging 50 kilometers away at Mzima. And if you watch the video, you'll actually see exactly where it emerges. The natural filtration process gives rise to Mzima's famously clear stream, which flows through a series of pools and rapids. Please take a look. It was such a fantastic visit, and the elephants that we met about 5 minutes into it. It was really an extraordinary experience. Happiness is a bubble machine. I like this photograph from London_W4. This quote by Moby Dick caught my attention. The world, oh, the world. What chefs want you to know about your fish? It's an article in Bloomberg, but I like the photograph. Political reflections, US not looking for war with North Korea, Haley says, and I think that's what led to a very sharp sell down in gold. The UN voted to increase North Korean sanctions, but stopped short of an oil embargo. I'm not convinced China is seeking to rein North Korea in personally. I think Xi Jinping is just tugging the leash. North Korea remains a buffer between China and 25,000 US soldiers. So, I think China is playing a very calibrated hand, as is North Korea, with that missile they lobbed over Japan, for example. And this is interesting. I think what it tells me is that we're stepping back from the brink. November 2010, my piece was the Hermit Kingdom, and I said the media keeps chanting like a mantra, China will rein North Korea in. And I said it is not in their interests. The media says it's not in their interest of a mad dog like North Korea as an ally. I think actually it is. And I said China's taking a much more forward position, and particularly in Asia, it's near abroad, and that North Korea is the perfect instrument, the attack dog, in this scenario, in particular given that China would be quite happy to see those 25,000 US soldiers run right into the sea. And I think think that's a fact. But obviously they're playing a calibrated hand. UN sanctions cut 55% of North Korean gas, diesel, and heavy fuel. Korea credit default swaps show it's more expensive to insure against a default there than do the same with China on the Philippines. So that's quite interesting that has moved. Former US Navy SEAL drop iPhones over North Korea and put satellites over them with free Wi-Fi. I thought that was quite clever. Tribute in light on 9/11 anniversary eve. That's from Alfonso Pestena. And then another, Jim Cramer of CNBC asked in 2016, freedom or fear at the WTC site. This photo I took captured both, Curtis S. Shin. I think, the issue has been, and for me, has been the fact that we still don't know the actual facts behind what happened. And some documentaries, particularly the spectacular implosion without an explosion of one of the buildings, leads one to question the facts as we have received them. Textbook example of ethnic cleansing, Rohingya village of Munipara with 136 homes torched this morning. UN to discuss Rohingya crisis after UN rights chief says Myanmar violence is a textbook example of ethnic cleansing, which it is, and it shows you how politics plays a role in all these things, that there is just no political interest, it seems, on anyone's part to do something about this. Whereas you can guess if it was Libya or Syria, we would have a regime change and intervention before you could blink. Steve Bannon, 60 Minutes, the full interview. The more I watch this, the more curious. His worldview is so extraordinary, and it really informs me that that's the worldview of the administration. This is what you call a fast-track career. Oh, and MBS is 31 years old, a half-century younger than the man he would replace. In less than 3 years, the prince has become the defense minister, launched the country into an intense war in Yemen, emerged as the point man on the wide-ranging Vision 2030 reform program, become crown prince in part via a classic bit of late-night palace intrigue, sidelining the old one, and put the squeeze on Qatar. Now he appears poised to become king if the incumbent king, Salman bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud, abdicates, which would be a first for the kingdom. Oh, and MBS is 31 years old, a half-century younger than the man he would replace. Uneasy lies the head that wears a crown. Wasn't written about a millennial king trying to overhaul his oil-dependent country in the midst of an oil crash and several wars, but it seems apt enough. I'm not convinced he has the ability to navigate what is going to be an oil price collapse. What machines can tell from your face is the economist. The human face is a remarkable piece of work. The astonishing variety of facial features helps people recognize each other and is crucial to the formation of complex societies. So is the face's ability to send emotional signals, whether through an involuntary blush or the artifice of a false smile. People spend much of their waking lives in the office and the courtroom, as well as the bar and the bedroom, reading faces for signs of attraction, hostility, trust, and deceit. They also spend plenty of time trying to dissimulate. Paul Ekman is the authority on these matters, and it was a fascinating read. EU source warned UK negotiators the days of gunboat diplomacy are over. European Parliament's Brexit coordinator Guy Verhofstadt told The Independent there could be no trade-off involving security, while another EU source warned UK negotiators the days of gunboat diplomacy are over. International markets, Asian stocks are back at 10-year highs. It's an extraordinary story in the equity markets globally. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro, dollar 119.65, dollar index 91.86, Japanese yen, that's had a big move, 109.58. The pound pressing up against 132, 131.96, staged a huge recovery. Aussie dollar, well, let's take a look at that, 0.8037. India rupee 63.955, South Korean won 1128.94, Brazilian real 310.31, Egyptian pound 17.6673, South African rand 1294.19. Earlier yesterday, Jamie at Reuters said the euro is enjoying its biggest rally against the dollar in a decade. Is there more juice left, or is it time for a reversal? This is a chart via UBS. We've twice popped above 120. We're back below it at 119.65. Dollar yen. This is a chart from NASA Investing. Now at 109.60. A vicious rebound in the dollar. Commodity markets, well, gold, that was quick. This is a chart from Triple Leverage. We're now at 13.26, and I think this was all about the Haley comments at the UN. A reduced geopolitical risk, a sense that we weren't going to go over the precipice, but we were going to take a step back. Brent oil continues to face rejection below the inflection point. Tea commodities is growing downside risks. I remain a bear. This is Brent. I think we could see this down dramatically towards 40, but somehow or other it's being held up for now. US crude oil futures settled at $48.07. Remember, my bold target was $32 for that. For an illustration of how Irma's destruction was less than forecast, have a look at orange juice markets. Zimbabwe's Grace Mugabe says the model attacked her with a knife. Ooh, brave lady. And highly unlikely. Weak growth fuels fear for Rwanda transformation, David Pilling in the FT. As dusk settles on Kigali, the Rwandan capital's year-old convention center comes alive, illuminated from within. The futuristic structure, designed to resemble a traditional house, glows like a bright, living ball of light. The $300 million facility, which dominates Kigali's cityscape, is the most visible of several investments that President Paul Kagame is banking on to deliver the country's next stage of economic transformation. Ground has been broken on an $800 million airport. There are 1,200 five-star hotel rooms, and special economic zones are beginning to attract foreign investments. The government has also helped Rwanda Air, the national airline, acquire a dozen aircraft and is funding $50 million of its annual running costs. The aim is to turn the tiny landlocked country into a convention hub and high-end tourism destination. In a sign of how meticulously planned the strategy is, Rwanda has shipped in lions and rhinos from South Africa to the Akagera National Park, so that the so-called Big Five, which also include leopard, buffalo, and elephant, are available for tourists to see. Mr. Kagame, a former rebel leader, has delivered strong growth and development after inheriting a country in ruins after the 1994 genocide. A sharp fall in growth this year, worsened by a drought and slowdown in construction, has prompted questions about whether the next chapter of Mr. Kagame's development agenda is a gamble too far. Some investors, both local and foreign, have also complained about what they view as an overbearing state. Much of the private sector is dominated by businesses known as party statals, linked to the ruling RPF and the military. Claire Akamanzi, who runs the Rwanda Development Board, says state investments are not an attempt to take over the commanding heights of the economy. The government had to take a catalytic role to encourage foreign direct investment, she said. Giving the example of South Africa's MTN, which she says would never have invested had the government not taken the lead. Now she adds the state has cut its stake to zero, the government played its role and walked out. Defended the strategy of government-led development. We invested in hotels. People thought we were crazy. Why do you pump money into building hotels? We said because we have the opportunity of growing a tourism industry. Rwanda, that now there are more people coming, so there are more hotels. Hotels are filling up. If we hadn't triggered this, it would not have happened. Still, there is concern that Rwanda might have bitten off more than it can chew. The country is running big current account deficits, estimated by the IMF at 14.5% of output. This is a big worry for us, the trade deficit. Boosting, in order to meet Kigali's Vision 2050, they need to grow the economy by 10% annually. This is not a country, it's a company with a police force, as one disenchanted Rwandan entrepreneur. If you become too successful, the RPF usually comes knocking. This is a ludicrously ambitious and incredibly high-risk development strategy, says Will Jones, but that doesn't mean it's the wrong one. I think if anyone can, President Kagame can, and he's very focused. I think some of these criticisms are valid, but overall he's taken that country a great distance, and he's done some pretty heavy lifting. Zimbabwe's vast diamond riches exploited by secretive political and military elites. This is a report by Global Witness. Since 2010, Zimbabwe has officially exported over $2.5 billion in diamonds, according to official figures from the Kimberley process. Limited available government reports show only around $300 million of this can clearly be identified in public accounts. This has largely gone to funding ZANU-PF. Poverty and state violence, not religion, are driving young Africans to join militant groups, the UN said. This is breakthrough thinking on their part. Uganda targets 4 million tourists from China. South African oil share up 10.57% so far this year. Dollar rand, let me put up a 6-month chart, sort of around the 13 area just below it. Egyptian pound 17.6973. Nigerian oil share up 32.7% so far this year. Ghana Stock Exchange up 39.83% so far this year. I like this photograph of a fisherman working on Lake Kivu near Ijwi Island in the DRC. On the reverse side, over 500 dead as Congo cholera epidemic spreads, says the World Health Organization. Petra shutters Tanzanian mine after diamond shipment seized. Petra Diamonds halted production at its mine in Tanzania after the government seized a parcel of diamonds suspected of being undervalued as a dispute between the state and foreign-owned mining companies widens. Petra shares fell the most in 16 years. Employees of the Johannesburg-based company are cooperating with the authorities in the East African nation are investigating a shipment of 71,654 carats of gems that was blocked from export to Petra's offices in Antwerp, according to a statement released in London on Monday. Finance Minister Philip Pango on Saturday threatened to nationalise the consignment after the government found the parcel of gems was worth more than the company said it was. Certain key personnel from Williamson are currently being questioned by the authorities. Operations at Williamson have temporarily been stopped for health and safety and security reasons. Petra shares fell as much as 28% on Monday, the biggest intraday plunge since June 2001. They were 8.1% lower by 117. Mapango, the finance minister, said investigators found the true value of the seized cargo was $29.5 million. This is an incredible scenario, and I think it leaves President Magufuli in a tough spot, because to climb down from this very hardline, extreme stance is not going to be easy. Kenya is stable and no one will be allowed to disrupt the peace, said Uhuru Kenyatta to Kepsa yesterday. Clock ticking for Kenya's squabbling overshadows election rerun. Kenya's running out of time to ensure credible rerun of presidential elections, with the next vote due in just 5 weeks. The Electoral Commission is mired in infighting over who should take the fall for last month's botched contest. As things stand now, most of the people that ran the August 8th elections are still in office, and the system that they used has not been changed, says Peter Wayanda, a politics professor at the University of Nairobi. As long as that remains the case, one cannot expect credible elections. If things are not done right, there will definitely be a crisis that will result in political instability. Yield on Kenya's foreign debt climbed 15 basis points since the election was annulled. The FTSE NSE 25 index of stocks has dropped 3.2%. But remember, it's retraced half of the drop. On September the 1st, the Supreme Court ruled that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission failed, neglected, or refused to conduct the election in a manner consistent with the dictates of the Constitution. Of course, it's yet to release its detailed findings. On September 5, Chebukati wrote to Ezra Chiloba, the Commission's CEO, asking him why a computer username had been created in his name without his consent, among other questions. Odinga's alliance, known as NASA, said it would be untenable to stage the rerun on October the 17th. The apparent conflict with the Electoral Commission isn't resolved. It shows the Commission is unable to carry out its constitutional functions without regard to political interests or causes that undermine its authority and mandate. Musalia Mudavadi. The problem is systematic and grave, and it has thrown the electoral process into a cesspool. And then the final comment, if it is held, then the question of credibility will still arise. I am not sure what direction it is going to take. It is very uncertain. 4th of September, I wrote this, given the damning nature of the verdict with respect to the IABC, it is unclear to me how the 60-day deadline is met. I was recommending the marble solution a la Gambia. I said the court's decision was unprecedented because in such cases courts have weighed the level of malfeasance and infraction in the balance, and typically where the margin of victory is so wide, courts have taken the view that the level of infraction has not risen to a threshold which would have altered the result. Here the Supreme Court took a literal and narrow constitutional basis. The President's lawyers were outplayed and slow to appreciate the ground had shifted. And the decision was an unprecedented move in Africa. But it's still not clear to me how we're going to move this thing forward. Gatundu South MP Moses Correa and Johnson Muthama have been arrested over alleged hate speech remarks, finally. I like this photograph that Larry Meadow posted of himself live at Pangani police station. Looks like Alexandra Phillips, former head of media for Nigel Farage, and UKIP is working for Jubilee. This is from Ori Okolo. Interesting comments from Julie Bishop at Africa Down Under conference, saying that Australian companies have invested more than $30 billion directly in African countries. To get a sense of the impact that investment can have, let me give you a case study. She said, Julie Bishop, Base Titanium's Kwale mineral sands operation in Kenya. Base and its contractors currently employ more than 900 people, almost all of them Kenyan. Base plans to continue its operations at Kwale at this level for another 10 years, directly contributing an estimated $1 billion to Kenya's economy. On completion, Base will hand over to the local authorities a working dam, operational boreholes, an electrical system, a road and a port. That's an important partnership with Kenya, with current, future and continuing value, but Base Titanium is also partners with the Australian government and Australian value fashion group Cotton On in establishing ethical cotton production in Kenya. So it's great that they got a shout out from her. The Kenya June 2024 Eurobond has delivered a total return this year of 14.6%. Nairobi all-share rebounded 0.4% yesterday. It's up 24.73% year-to-date. Safaricom is up 14.835% on a total return basis in 2017. NIC Bank is up 57.69% on a total return basis in 2017. Limuri Tea reported first half earnings per share was negative 1 shilling and 88 cents versus positive 1 shilling and 82 cents last time round. Turnover was down 43.286%. Negative EPS, no interim dividend. They said they produced 926 tons of green leaf in the first half of 2017, manufactured into 216 tons of black tea. 45% decrease in made tea volumes compared to the first half of 2016. Total revenues decreased by 43% to 34 million in the period versus 59 million in the same period. Drop in production volumes as a result of unfavorable weather conditions experienced in Q1. Drought obviously refers, but the net asset value is considerably higher than 648 million, which is the market cap. NSE 20 closed down 0.63%, but remains up 19.76% this year. Wishing you a great week.